Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
This is Wayne Bennett, episode 28 of the Wayne Bennett Podcast, and here today we're at the Raleigh County Convention Center with the Woodrow Wilson Class of 1971, the 50th class reunion, and boy, we had a big time last night at Little Beaver Park. And the people we have today is Dana McCorkle and Jamie Carr, Jamie Gillen, and they are two of the guys who have helped organize this gathering. And how did you guys get involved, Jamie? How did you get involved?
Well, 40 years ago, we're all just talking, I guess, and was kind of waiting. You know, the president of the class usually has the class members. President, vice president, they usually have the reunion. Well, they didn't. So just a bunch of us got together and decided we're going to put on a reunion. So we formed a committee, whoever wanted to come, and we formed the committee, and we have been working on it. We had a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, 35, 40, 45, and now our 50th. Wow. And some of the same people are still the committee members.
Dana, you're kind of the catalyst as far as running the Facebook, I guess, and keeping up with people. And how much time does it take to do this?
A whole lot, believe me. Now, I got talked into taking over the database 10 years ago after I retired from Sears and so forth, 2008 or something like that. Since then, I've redone the entire database. We have gone through several search engines to make sure the addresses we have on people are correct as possible. We still miss some every now and then. That's a time consuming thing. Then you put everything together for sending out our letters. We sent out close to 500 letters this year. We had 10 bounced, and 6 of those I know the addresses are correct.
That's nice.
So I don't know what the post office is doing. One of the lost people we just found within the last week, I think. So, but I end up doing that. I end up setting up registration both for what we did last night and what we're doing this evening. I do fortunately get other people to help me.
It's more than a one-man job, isn't it?
Very much more.
That's why we have a committee. We all work on the committee.
Now tell me something. When you were in high school, Jamie, what is one event or thing that happened that really stands out in your mind, or something that you can recall? Was it a prom or a dance or a
probably graduation?
Graduation.
Yeah. And I learned later in life, if I had life to do over, I would have studied more. And I wouldn't have looked at guys. I would have kept my nose in the book, because when you're out of school, you look back. I liked school. I had a good time, but I was ready to graduate, move on. And a lot of our classmates, they'd say, "Are you going to college?" But when I was younger, everybody didn't go to college, Mm-hmm. And I think that, when I look back, I had a good time in school. I'm still having a good time in our reunion, but, I just feel like people in class, people that are in school, study, make something of yourself,
Good advice.
Don't play around and goof up and just get by. You're smart. People are smart, just sometimes they're just lazy.
You mentioned graduation. At the graduation, Pine Pemberton sang a song, "The Long and Winding Road," and it's been 50 years.
It's been a long and winding road.
What stands out in your mind, Dana, during your high school?
Well, unfortunately, after I got out of grade school, they split our whole grade school class up. I did what I had to get by. I passed and everything else, but I didn't have the competition, so I didn't get the grades I needed. But I played sports and did things like that. But the major thing that stands out in my mind happened 2 weeks before we were supposed to graduate. Unfortunately, it's a tragedy. Rick Facilio was a very good friend of mine, not only with school, but with scouting. And and Rick died of leukemia 2 weeks before we were supposed to graduate. Funeral was at St. Francis. We left St. Francis to go to the cemetery, did everything that had to be done at the cemetery. We were getting ready to leave. There were still cars coming to the cemetery. I guarantee that's the largest funeral I've ever attended in my life.
I remember that funeral.
I mean, I had fun in school. I did everything I needed to do. I got in college, did what I needed to do there. Yeah, I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. So, I mean, you know, I did what I had to do. But if there's one major event, like I say, in high school that stands out in my mind, it had to be that one.
Yeah, I can understand that. What about teachers at Woodrow? What's a teacher, Jamie, that stands out or someone?
I just loved Mrs. Brown. She was the theater. That's what was it? Her thespian. I just loved
Thespians,
her.
yeah.
She was really a really good teacher. Mr. Hodges, I really loved him. He taught math. And
you were in the drama club, weren't you?
No, my sister was drama club.
Your sister was drama club.
I took music, chorus, and got kicked out. But we won't talk about that. The teacher couldn't sing, but she kicked me out because I couldn't sing. But anyways. But I want to tell you, on our reunion, our committee, we all work hard. We have the least this time, I think, than any, but, it takes, I'm a committee of one, he's a committee of one, but we're all a committee.
Sure.
We have several people. We, too, could not do the reunion. It takes, we have Marianne Crook, Regina Doss, me, Dana, Bobby Neal, we have Bill Kessel.
And Vicki Cook.
Vicki Cook Green. She helped us find probably 40 people that we haven't found in 40 years. She's on the side of, what was it?
She's on
Ancestries.
Ancestry
and she
and a few
helped
other things
us.
and what have you.
And she also found a guy I went to barber school with, I hadn't seen since 1974. And I found him this year thanks to her. But anyways, and then Gary Wilburn's helping us with our music, and we're going
to get Gary in there a little later.
Yeah,
well,
but anyhow, we have a big group.
I mean, I've got Kathy Moore and Denise Graham helped me with registration on stuff right this. Kathy's running this thing out right this minute. Kathy Pettit's helping her. She's got a couple other people working right this minute. I'd have to go look and see who all was there.
Okay.
But we appreciate the help when people volunteer to come help us with things.
We do.
One last question, I'll let you guys go because I know you got a busy night, but is there going to be a 55?
Lord's willing, we're still living. I believe we are.
Good.
Because they said last night they'd like to have another one, but we're going to vote tonight.
We appreciate you guys.
And if things work out right, 3 years from now, we're going to have a 71st birthday party because most of the class will be 71.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate you stopping by, and God bless you. See ya.
Yeah, most anybody I've asked about the birthday party says, yeah, we want to do that.
Hear it somewhere?
Okay, our next guests are 1971 graduates, Jerome Harrison and Gary Wilburn. Glad to have you guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And you guys were musically inclined, man. I'm telling you. Jerome, you all-state chorus?
He was too.
Both of you were?
Yes.
Wow.
I kind of snuck in the back door a little bit. I was an alternate. Roger Daniels decided he was going to go away that weekend and play with the Don Boyd Orchestra, so I got to go.
You still sing?
I don't sing very much anymore.
Uh-huh.
My voice kind of went away, and then unfortunately my sister passed away in 2007, and when she passed away it just seemed like my voice went away.
Really?
It took me almost 7 years to come back and be able to sing someplace.
Well, Gary, I knew that you played some music with gospel group, traveled around a little. How long did you do that?
I guess we did it close to 10 years,
Really?
thereabouts, yeah. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the traveling. I like to get on the bus and sleep going down the road.
Most of the time, that's what they don't like is the travel. But,
Randy down the street from us, he lived to sleep on the bus. To this day, I'll say something about something that happened on the road, and he'd go, You saw more than I did, because I slept all the time.
Pine Pemberton sang A Long and Winding Road. 50 years, man. What have you learned in the last 50 years, Jerome? What's one main thing that sticks out that you'd give advice to somebody getting ready to graduate now?
The struggle is real, and never lose your faith. And life is not easy. We didn't promise you a road garden. And if you're not willing to work hard for it, you're not going to get it.
That's great advice. Great advice. Gary, what did you drive a car when you went to school?
To and from, you mean high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I drove my dad's. I'd take him to work and drop him off, and then I'd take the car to school.
What kind of car was it?
It was a '67 Comet, red. You had a Comet.
Yeah, I used to have
Midnight Mover.
Midnight Mover. That's what we called it, the Blue Comet.
Yeah.
I remember the red Comet.
Yeah, that was a car I drove more than anything.
If you had a bucket list, Jerome, what would right now? What would be on your bucket list? What would you like to do before you leave this place?
Well, in the 50 years, I've done a lot of things. I've been to foreign countries. I've served in the service. My bucket list, I just want to live a peaceful coexistence, because there's been so much tragedy and hate and anger and everything else, and I'm at that age now where I just don't want to be bothered with it. I just want to live and be at peace.
Is there any place you go to find peace for a short period of time? Or
42 4th Avenue, Montgomery, West Virginia. But if I won the lottery, the first place I'd go back to is London, England.
Is that right?
Yes, I love London.
I'll be there. I've never been there, but I look forward to. What about you, Gary? Let's shorten it a little bit. After this reunion, what's the first thing on your agenda you want to do this coming week?
Spoil them 2 new grandkids. Of course, I started on it about a month ago, but yeah, I retired and I'm still work. I went back to work. I work at Analabs, but that's what I make. Spend it for my kids, my grandkids.
I'm going to ask you a revealing question. Jerome, anybody you had a secret crush on in high school they didn't know about?
That information is classified.
It's been 50 years.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends when I was friends with a lot of females, but I never really had any crushes or any romantic notions or anything. I found my wife when I went to Tech.
You went to Tech, too, didn't you?
Yeah, he finished. I didn't.
No, I didn't.
You didn't finish?
I ran out of money. I went in the Air Force.
Oh.
But I did finish. I got out of the Air Force and finished University of Arkansas, Little Rock.
Well, Gary, what was a teacher at Woodrow that might have had a great influence on you, if not, or a?
You're gonna think this is crazy because it's a teacher that really doesn't have anything to do with English, math. It's Carrie McClure, our chorus teacher.
Granny McClure.
Of course, I had her for 3 years in chorus, so we had more of a chance to.
Yeah.
But she put up with a lot from us. You need Pat Williams sitting here too.
Pat Williams and I got kicked out of class just about every day.
She was near retirement too.
Yeah, yeah.
She retired the year we graduated.
Yeah, and we called her Granny.
Granny.
She retired the year you guys graduated.
Yeah.
Ain't taking this no more. One last question, guys. I appreciate you coming by. What's the one thing at Woodrow that you think you could have improved on while you were there, Jerome? Or it could have been improved, maybe not necessarily you improved
That's
it.
a hard one.
Oh, did you mean the school improved or what we should have done?
Whatever. The school, classes, whatever. Anything you think of that could have been improved?
Yeah, I really don't know, because there were troubles in all other places, but we didn't have those
No,
racial troubles.
it was
or-
totally different
Yeah.
then. Well, you know, you were what, 10 years ahead of me.
I look it.
Yeah, but it was so different then. You know, I keep seeing this thing on Facebook. If you would you go back and do high school again? I always say yeah, because I had fun in high school. Now I won't tell you that I would change anything the way it went. I'd just do it again, because what happened then is a direct reflection on where I am and what I have now. And you know, if I hadn't married this girl, or you know, you wouldn't have the grandkids that I've got that I think the world. I wouldn't change anything. I'd just go back and do it again.
I wouldn't really change anything, but I wouldn't go back and do it again. No. I didn't like high school that much, because he was a little better student than I was.
I don't know.
And it was kind of tough. But
I would hate to be growing up in this day and time. Yeah, this
It'd be
is
horrible now.
It's tough. It's tough. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming by and talking to me. And you know, they say the Music Man, right there in River City. It's right here now, you guys. And
First time we sang together was a solo at Stratton
Hey, Stratton, yeah.
for Julia Brown.
Yep.
And what was it?
I don't remember.
Love is Blue?
Yeah,
or-
blue, blue, my heart is blue, blue.
you want to hit a tune? You want to hit a...
No.
Many moons go by, much water go under bridge.
Okay, guys. Well, appreciate you, and we'll see you a little later tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll go play some music. See y'all later.
I'm going to work the room.
Our next couple, Susan DeVoris Tate and Diana Bennett, both graduated in 1971. And you guys have been friends a long time, right, Susan?
I think it was the 6th grade, wasn't it?
I had moved into the area and started going to Lincoln and was in the same classroom with Susie.
And besides graduating together, you were part of each other's wedding, is that correct?
No, she was a part of my wedding.
Okay.
Yeah, she was my maid of honor.
And Susan, after you graduated, did you leave the area of Beckley? Or
I went to Beckley College for 1 year, and I studied secretarial science, I think they called it, where you did typing and shorthand and that kind of stuff. But I really wanted to go to college, and Dad wouldn't even fill out the form, so I had to do it myself. So I figured the best way for me to get out from under his thumb was to get married. So I got married the next year when I was 18, and left. He was in the Air Force, and we moved when we were 18, and I started taking college courses as soon as we moved, and I would take classes at every semester that I could, and then I worked while he was in the Air Force.
you spent quite a few miles traveling too. Where all have you been?
Oh my goodness. Well, he was stationed at Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina, and then he was stationed at Hurlburt Field, which is near Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, down around Destin, if you know where Destin is. So that's where he got out of the Air Force. And then we moved back to Beckley, and we lived in Mount Hope for a while. And then he got a job at Weirton Steel, and we moved to Weirton, which is in the very northern panhandle up near Pittsburgh. And we divorced there. Well, we had a child, and then we divorced there. And I stayed, and he left. So I was there 20 years in Weirton, and then I moved to Wheeling. As far as travels go, I've only been to Europe once. I was in Rome for 8 days. But I've been to Toronto, I've been to Vancouver, we went to Alaska in 2018. We've been to the Bahamas. Took a road trip of Kentucky.
What's your
spent 10
favorite
days
place?
there. Honestly, I think of where we've been so far, I like Alaska the best.
Really?
Only because I had no expectations. I knew that people said it was great, but I didn't have any expectations. And it's not a fancy place, but it's just raw. And I think that's why I liked it so much. And also the glaciers are melting, and they show where they were and now where they are, and when your ship goes through Glacier Bay, you can hear the ice melting and falling, and that to me is so sad. So anyway, that's one of the things that we observed while we were there, and I really enjoyed that.
You just got back from a trip too.
Oh yes, we went to Maine, went to Portland, Maine, and Bar Harbor, Maine. I spent 10 days up there, and that's a lovely place if you haven't been.
While you were in high school, Diane, what teacher do you think had the most influence, or teachers? On you?
Probably Mrs. Pennington. She always stands out in my mind. I didn't mind English as a subject that much, but she had you diagram sentences, pull them apart and tell, what was the verb and stuff like that. So she just made it much easier to understand the English language as far as how it was structured and stuff, the things that you needed to add. And so I think she was my favorite.
But you played music too.
Alan Staton was my band director, loved him. In fact, even after I graduated, I joined the alumni band and played in that for many years till he passed. And then we played a couple more years under other directors, but it wasn't the same after Alan Staton retired.
The theme of the class of 1971 was the long and winding road. If you'll remember the graduation song there. What kind of road has it been for you, Susan? 50 years. What advice would you give to someone just getting ready to graduate?
Well, I had, after I graduated from high school, I piecemealed college and then graduated from college and then ended up with a master's degree. And it took me 10 years to graduate from college, and then I was 40 when I got my master's. And I think one of the things I would say is that it's never too late. You're never too old to start something. The other thing I would say to young people, and I mentored people throughout my career, is that you have to believe in yourself because nobody else will. And if you hold yourself up as good enough, then everyone else will recognize from your confidence that you are good enough. And so I regret probably that I didn't hold myself up as good enough earlier, but when I did, then things fell in place, and that's what I would advise people.
What about a bucket list? Diane, what's on your bucket list? What do you want to do before you leave this place?
Now you put me on the spot because now you're listening. A bucket list. I guess I'd like to go to Hawaii one of these days. I guess that's on my bucket list. No, my bucket list is I want a convertible. That's what I want.
A Volkswagen convertible.
It doesn't matter. I just would like to have a convertible.
What about you, Susan?
Honestly, I'm living the dream right now. I'm retired and we're traveling outside of COVID. We're traveling when we can. I have 2 grandchildren that I dearly love, and I get to babysit the youngest one anytime I want to and most of the time. So it's just special. I hope to stay healthy enough that I can continue to do that. And I guess my bucket list is to stay healthy so I can continue to travel and watch the kids grow.
Yours is much nicer than mine.
Would you want to give a shout out to before you leave? Anyone?
I would like to give a shout out to all the people that put this on. I mean, that they've had to do a lot of work to get this pulled together, and many hours have been put into this, and they don't do it for the accolades or anything like that. They just truly want to get us all together, and
And they've done a great job.
They have.
This is one of the best ones or maybe the best one that I've been associated with. What about you, Susan?
Well, I was thinking after last night, and I talked to several people, that in our class there's been so many people that have had heartaches. And yet, as I talk to people, whether it's death of a spouse or a child or a broken relationship or children that don't give you the accolades that you probably deserve, I just think it's amazing that the people in this class are so resilient, that they that they have come through so much, and yet they're still here. And the other thing I think about a lot is the people that have moved on before us, that have passed on. And Fred Ferris being the most recent probably in this year. I think you just sort of have to be thankful for every day that you get.
Ladies, I'm glad you came to see me, and hope your evening is just as enjoyable as it has been, and hopefully we'll see you again in 5 more years. Our next guest is Lacey Aliff. You go by Nate. How'd you get that?
Well, it happened in high school. There happened to be Burge Spillman and Kenny Fox and myself, and there was a boxer named Nino Bernucci. And Burge Spillman loved Nino Bernucci. And Kenny Burge and I always hung out together, and they started calling us the Bernucci brothers. So Burge became Nino because that was his favorite boxer, and they came up with names that started with N for Kenny Fox and myself. I became Nate, and Kenny Fox became Nebuchadnezzar.
And you became Nate Zavood or something.
Nate Zavoody, yes. Nate Zavoody is when you can turn your hands upside down and do your eyes just like this.
You played basketball, you ran cross country a little bit, ran a little track.
I was forced to run cross country only because I played basketball. So Preach Wiseman felt that if you were going to be a basketball player, you had to be in shape, so you had to run cross country, which very few basketball players were very good at cross country.
What was life like under Preach Wiseman?
Preach was tough, and he was honest. He told me one time, he said, "Aliff, you're so clumsy you could trip over a foul line." So, it built my esteem quite a bit, knowing.
Now your dad was into cars. He sold cars. He had old cars. Did you drive a car to school?
I did not have a car until I graduated from WVU in 1975.
Is that right?
That is correct. And my dad, and he's well known in Beckley, he was the flagman at Beckley Motor Speedway. He worked at Lewis Chevrolet for many, many years. Had a car that was rather famous called Black Diamond, a 1940 model Ford.
I remember that car.
He would take that car to car shows. He drove it to New York one time and won Best in Class. So it was quite the vehicle. Several people have asked me about it this week. What happened to that car?
What happened to that car?
He ended up selling it to a fella in Kentucky.
Alvidor.
Yeah.
Well, you played a little music too, and what your career was? Was it tied around music?
Well, part of it was I always had a love for music from an early age. And then as we got into high school, played with some bands, had a lot of fun with it. But when I graduated from WVU, I sat back and I said, what do you really want to do? What are you passionate about? And it came back to music. Every time it came back to music. So I wanted to get into, it's called A&R, artist and repertoire work, representing artists. And I ended up going to Nashville and interviewing with several companies. And at the time, the industry just wasn't doing a lot of hiring on that end. So I had an opportunity to get on with a music retailer, Camelot Music. They actually had a store here in Beckley. They were based in Canton, Ohio. So I ended up spending 12 years with Camelot Music. I was based in New Orleans, was a regional manager for a 4-state area.
How'd you end up in Florida?
A company that I worked for in Erie, Pennsylvania. The company was sold to a larger company, and the company said you can relocate to anywhere in the U.S. you want as long as there is a major airport. So it was between San Diego, going back to New Orleans, or Tampa, and I chose Tampa.
I think that's a good choice.
Yes, I haven't been disappointed.
What about when you were in high school? What teacher or teachers do you think had the greatest influence on you, good or bad? I mean,
Well, if you would allow me to go back, I'm going to go back to junior high, and Mr. McNish. Mr. McNish had a very simple set of rules. Just pay attention, listen to me, learn, and you'll pass the test. He had a test every Friday, and he would grade the test, and if you passed the test, he would tell a story. He was one of the most magnificent storytellers that you have ever heard. And so everyone was motivated to pass that test, because if anyone didn't pass, then he wouldn't tell the story. So everybody was always paying attention. And he also happened to have a paddle that had holes in it. And if you got a little bit out of line, he would have to get the paddle out.
yeah, I think there was several of them that had the paddles back at that time. But it's kind of funny you mentioned Mr. McNish. His son J.W., when he was a senior and I was a sophomore, one of the things he left. As back then seniors would bequeath something to an underclassman, and he left me his track shoes, and it was I loved the guy, and I thought he was I really appreciated that. But 50 years, the long and winding road. That's what was sang at the graduation, Pine Pemberton, man. And what advice would you give somebody that's getting ready to graduate from high school?
Well, you have the typical cliche of, follow your passion, follow your heart. I think that you have to be a good listener, and people that might be a little bit older than you, that you think are old and over the hill, they might have a little bit of wisdom between their ears, and if you're willing to just sit down and listen, it can help carve out your path and the decisions that you're going to make. Whether you're 8 years old, 18 years old, graduating high school, or 68 years old, I still tell my children to this day, life is about choices. We make good choices, we make bad choices. Oftentimes the bad choices have bad consequences. So just really think through the decisions that you're making, and it'll help carve out your life's path.
Sounds like good advice, man. I appreciate you stopping by, and I know you want to get back with your classmates, and I already heard we're going to have another one here in maybe 3 years, when everybody turns 71, they said. So
Yeah, that's what
our next guest is Don Burton. He's a graduate of 1971, and you played football, and did you play basketball?
Yes, sir.
What, did you run track?
No, that's Pete Colasetto. He's too hard. I didn't run track. He made me run the 400.
Now you had, did you start all 3 years in football?
Yes, sir.
And if I can remember, did you get hurt in the?
Yes, in my senior year.
You kind of blew a knee out or something?
Hamstring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do after you graduated, Don?
Went to the Air Force.
How long were you in the Air Force?
A total of 37 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And you've stayed close to football. How you doing?
For 43 years. Well, I umpired football for 27 years, but I refereed basketball for going on 43 years.
Wow. And what made you want to get into the officiating? Just to
Coach Wiseman, because every time we leave and go down to Kanawha County, which is Charleston, Stonewall, he used to always raise raised a king about those referees. And so when I got a chance to become an official, I was thinking about Coach Wiseman. I said, I'm going to referee, and I'm not going to cheat nobody.
Well, tell me about life under Coach Wiseman. That was
he was disciplinarian, and he believed in running laps, and he believed in doing those suicide drills.
Suicide.
You know, where you run from baseline back and forth, back and forth. He believed in that.
What teachers had the most influence on you in high school?
All I can think of is coach had the most experience was Coach Jewel Hicks. You remember Jewel?
Oh, Joe. Yeah, I do.
think he's down in Pulaski, down in that area. I don't think he coaches in school anymore, but
Yeah. Last time I saw him, it's been a few years ago, he was running in a road race.
Okay.
And he was real
Yep.
busy doing
Yep.
that, and still the competitive guy. He always was, but yeah, he brought a lot to Woodrow when it came.
Yes, he did.
And it was sad that during the times that he was coaching, they were only taking like 4 teams to
I
the
know,
states
I
and
know.
stuff. Now they take 16
Yeah,
you know, each
yeah.
division. But it's 50 years, the long and winding road.
yes, it is.
I and Pemberton sang it at the
Yeah,
graduation.
yeah.
And, what advice would you give a young student that's getting ready to graduate from high school now? What advice would you give?
If you don't have the education that you should have received, join the military. I mean, I did 37 years. It's the best thing ever happened to me. I'd do it all over again.
That's great.
I mean, you get 3 square meals, a place to sleep, and get paid twice a month.
And good retirement.
Good retirement, yes.
Now, so you've traveled quite a bit.
Oh, I forgot some of the places I've been. I've been so many places in that time period. But the one that stands out the most to me is 1972 when I went to Thailand during the Vietnam War. At the time, I didn't think of it, but after all of my travels, I go back to that time because I was like 20, 21, 22 during that time. I spent 18 months in Thailand.
Did you have any secret crushes in high school?
Secret? No, I don't think I had any secret crushes. No.
I always got to ask one of them questions.
Yeah, no, sir. No, I didn't have no secret ones.
Did you drive to school, or you rode a school bus, or?
Frank Rodriguez was led the city of Beckley, the New River Park. He hired me and a guy named Woody Woodson when we were like 13, 14 years old. And we cut grass and rake leaves at New River Park. And summer, I was 16. I bought my first car for $200. Matter of fact, I had a picture of it at my car. I was going to bring it into my table. 1959 convertible Chevrolet. I drove it in the high school parade because I was hurt. I couldn't play football, so I drove. Matter of fact, I drove LeVert McDaniels and Jamel. What's Jamel's name? I can't think of her name. I drove them in the homecoming parade.
I bet you'd like to have that car back now.
I would, yeah. I didn't know, man, but it was super. I paid $200 for that car.
Wow.
From a guy from Mount Hope.
What about a fond memory? What in high school? What would be one of your fondest memories, or it could be something simple, or?
No, playing in the state tournament up in Morgantown at the Coliseum. The Coliseum, I think the Coliseum was like 3 years old. And matter of fact, I don't think they've ever played another one at the Coliseum since then. Because I think once it went down Charleston, I don't think it's left Charleston since it left Morgantown.
Yeah.
Playing at the Coliseum. And the craziest thing is we played George Washington and coach him. I mean, he just passed away here about last year. And Rick Green, this current coach for George Washington right now, he played on that team. And we were up 15 points at halftime, and they come back and beat us by 15. And actually, they won the state championship in '71. They beat Charlestown, I think that was the name, not Charleston, Charlestown.
Charlestown.
Yeah, they were a powerhouse, and
Yeah.
GW beat them that year. And Rick Green was on the team, and I can't think of the coach's name. But that was, and we stayed, I think Coach Wiseman didn't let us stay in town. We stayed out in Kingston, which was quite a ways from Morgantown.
Yeah. Anybody, your last question, anybody you'd like to give a shout out to, any family, friends, or?
No, sir, I can't think off the top.
Are you married?
Yes, sir.
You better give a shout out to your wife.
All right, it sounds like I want to give a shout out to Bertha Burton.
All right, man. Well, listen, appreciate you coming and talking to me, and listen up for us, and let you get back to your friends, man.
Okay, sounds
Thank you.
good.
Our next guest is Mike Delamere, graduate in 1971, and Mike, how you been?
I'm doing just fine, Wayne. Happy to be here, and really enjoying all of our fellow classmates and at this reunion.
You know, the theme of the 1971 was the long and winding road, and what kind of road has it been for you?
Well, I would say it's been long and winding, and it's not over. You know, as long as I'm here breathing this air, I'm still on that long winding road, and like anybody's life, you know, there's twists and turns and ups and downs, and part of the long winding road means that you keep going. You keep going and find a way to make it over the humps and enjoy the downhill, I guess. So that's how it's been for me. I've had a lot of good things happen in my life.
What'd you do right after you got out of high school?
Well, I went to WVU and didn't know really what I wanted to be or major in, but changed majors a few times and graduated from WVU with a degree in journalism, public relations, and then after a couple of years of work, went back to school and got a master's in safety management. So industrial safety, more or less, and had that as my career for the rest of my life.
Well, you've traveled pretty extensively, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, to get my first foot in the door for a job, I ended up going out west and lived in Wyoming, and then came back and lived in Blacksburg, Virginia, worked for Virginia Tech, and then met my wife, and we ended up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina for 28 years. And then with that job being with the Haynes Company, textile company, we had a lot of factories all over the world, and I traveled to Central America, Dominican Republic, Thailand, Vietnam, Europe, and a lot in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Well, your dad ran a restaurant for many years, and it was one of the mainstays around. Back then, they didn't have as many fast food restaurants like they do now, but Henry's was one of the places to go. And did you ever think about going into the restaurant business?
No, I worked down there some. Of course, I didn't cook. I did some of the, washed dishes and cleaned up around the building and that kind of thing. But it's a tough business. Restaurant business is tough, and I think the majority, if you look at the statistics, and I'm not going to be 100% on this, but the majority of restaurants fail within the first year.
Yeah.
And now, especially with fast food and with competition, it's a tough business.
It is. It is.
Very tough business.
When you were at Woodrow, any teachers that had a big influence on you, or anyone that comes to mind?
I can't really say that there's any one teacher. I think for me, I have to be honest, I was not the best student. I wasn't interested in school, and I didn't make the most of it. And it was later on that I realized that that was an important part of my life that I kind of took for granted and didn't take advantage of.
Well, at least you lived long enough to realize that.
Yeah, and, you know, I'd say some of the coaches, you know, we had some, I ran track cross country, and we had some coaches that were very influential. But nobody in terms of a teacher stands out in my mind right now. Maybe Mr. Shank, geometry teacher.
He was a chess club sponsor too, I think.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
A bucket list. What's on your bucket list? I know you've done a lot of different things. You're a pretty active fella. What's out there that you really want to do?
You know, I think a bucket list for me is I'd like to travel a little bit more. I'd like to go to Sicily and look up some of my ancestral family. I'd like to go to Argentina. Why? I think it's because there are lots of Italians. There are a lot of people with my last name that came out of a small part of Italy where my name is very popular. Delamea is very, very prevalent. And all those people left during the early part of the 20th century, and they either went to Brazil, Argentina, or they came to America. And I know a lot of them through Facebook, and I don't know, you know, if we go back far enough or not, we might be related, but I've just become, you know, very enamored with those lifestyles.
Anybody in particular you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'd like to shout out to, you know, some people that I graduated from high school with. One person in particular is Bobby Neal. Just a real good Christian man, there for everybody. He's always giving of himself and trying to help other people. He always has time and energy for other people. So I'd like to shout out to Bobby, and you know, there's a whole list of other people, but
Sure.
I'm not
Well,
going to go
you
into that
mentioned
list.
Bobby. I know Bobby, and his son Ryan is one of my favorite people. He's I happen to coach him a little bit, and Aaron. I had Aaron in class, and those are two good kids, man. They turned
They
out
are.
great.
Well, look at Bobby.
Yeah,
you know,
good
so his
family.
boys turned out good.
Man, I appreciate you stopping by to see me, and I know you want to get back and see some of your classmates, and good luck. Our next guest is Paul and Lynn Plumley, and Paul graduated in 1968, but you're here because Lynn graduated in 1971, right?
Right.
And how did you guys meet? When did you guys meet?
Picked him up at a grocery store.
I worked at Pagoda
Oh, really?
at the produce department for, what was his name? Ronnie McCollum?
Ronnie McCall.
How old were you then?
He was first year at Beckley College.
And you saw her before she saw you, or how you picked him up?
I picked him out.
Really?
Picked
And
me out.
then he was Morrow's friend.
I'll be
So
darned.
I went to Morrow and figured out who he was.
Now, you were in the band, Lynn, right?
Right.
What did you play?
Clarinet, kinda.
And then her talents, they put her on flag group.
They let me carry the flags.
Oh, okay.
I played the clarinet so well.
When you were at Woodrow, was there any particular teacher that had the most influence on you? Or one that you thought as a favorite?
No, Coach Hill was my favorite, but that's just because I liked him.
What about you, Paul?
Can't remember that far back.
You didn't get any whippings or anything like that back then.
Oh,
But,
Veneri.
yeah, I think that was one of the last ones that I got was from Veneri. But now, when you graduated, you went to Beckley College, Paul, and then 1968 was the first graduating class from the new Woodrow, and then 71 was the first graduating class that all 3 years went to Woodrow. Man, what did you do when you got out of high school?
I went to Marshall.
And did you graduate from Marshall?
No, I got married.
You guys have been married 50 years. I mean, you've been graduated 50 years ago. How long you been married?
49 in October.
49. The theme of the 1971 graduation was Long and Winding Road. In 50 years, tell me about your long and winding road. What's some of the, describe a few things that's happened that made it a long and winding road, or do you agree?
We had the boys.
Well, we
We
And
had donut
kids.
shop.
I went from Beckley College to Marshall. Back then, I graduated with a finance degree. Came back to Beckley, worked for CIT, and she followed me back. She went 1 year at Marshall, and followed me back, and we got married in '72. I graduated in '72.
Now, you've been involved in several business type jobs. Which one was the toughest?
Donuts.
Well, I graduated.
bar.
Graduated in '72, came back to Beckley. Most people wanted to get out of West Virginia. Our families were here, and we came back to Beckley, and I got a job as an insurance agent. It's my first job. Tried that for 6 months, about starved to death.
That was terrible.
And then I got into the fast food business because money was good. We went down there with Everett Rice. We opened up a donut shop and turned into 40 years.
Now you, how long you in the donut shop?
40 years. Opened up in '79.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And it was Dunkin' Donuts at first, and then it became
Right.
Donut Connection.
Yeah, it's a franchise, and they wanted to control you. We bought it from Everett Rice in '97, and we operated as Dunkin' for about 7 years, and they came in and said we had to do $1 million remodel, and we didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned two boys. You got any grandkids now?
6.
6. Wow. Are they close by?
4 in Charleston, 2 in TKK, South Carolina.
And I guess are they grown, or are they?
No, they're from 13 to 6.
So you get down there as often as you can get down there, I guess.
To Charleston all the time. Charlotte when we can.
Our oldest son's a pilot. He's with United in the civilian side, and then he's a lieutenant colonel in the Pittsburgh Air Guard.
They're gone. He and his wife both are in the Air Guard, and they're gone a lot. So we're in Charleston a lot.
He flies a C-17 that you see over in Afghanistan, people hanging on him.
Yeah.
He's a
One of those pilots.
aircraft commander of one of those C-17.
Wow. That,
The one in Charlotte does environmental science testing. And
bucket list. What do you want to do you haven't done? I know you've talked about something that
we have, but I really don't have any.
nothing you would like to do, or go somewhere, or
We worked so long, 40 years, getting up 3:30, 5:30 in the morning. We're just happy to quit.
you're experiencing your bucket list now, aren't you? But, last question. Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Family members, friends? This is your chance.
We talked about that Jim Smith. I just like to know what happened to him.
We're going to find out one of these days.
Where he went.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming and talking to us, and I know you want to get back with the crowd, and until next time we see you, God bless you. Our guests now, Ed Thompson and Roger Daniels, graduates in 1971, Woodrow Wilson High School. And guys, the theme was Long and Winding Road. Pine Pemberton singing at the graduation. And what kind of roads have been for you, Roger?
Well, it's been a long one and a winding one, and some of it smoothly paved, and some of it pretty rocky. But at least I'm here.
What about you, Ed?
I loved his answer, but I'll try not to copy it, although it's very similar. And I'm just happy to say that my faith has been restored in
Woodrow Wilson people that I haven't seen for 50 years, some of them, just how ready we all have been to come here tonight and experience what we've experienced.
Speaking of ready, when you graduated, did you feel like you were prepared when you went to the next step? I mean, do you think Woodrow Wilson prepared you?
I'm going to say, with the Vietnam War going on, and all my friends being at WVU, I couldn't focus well enough to say I was ready by Woodrow. But now I look back and I write a blog, and if I had not had Wanda Wiseman for English, it wouldn't have been nearly as good. So yes,
She was one of my favorite people. That was going to be one of my next questions. A teacher that might have had an influence.
I think for me, Woodrow prepared me for the next step. I didn't prepare myself for the next step, but it was no fault of Woodrow.
So what have you been doing for the last 50 years?
Well, I went into education as a music major, and I've taught instrumental music and choral music for a few years, both at the secondary level and on the college level. And then I went into central office administration, was a administrator in the central office for Mercer County for 23 years. The last 19 of those years I was personnel director.
Are you retired now?
Oh, I'm retired. I retired in 2012.
What about you, Ed?
2019, retired, and loving life now because I'm free to do about the same things, which is ministering to men in a fashion where, as I said tonight, relationships are really important, and helping men become what God designed them to be.
When you were in high school, Roger, did you drive to school or ride a school bus?
Rode a school bus, and then rode with a friend that lived right up the street from me that had a car, and so I rode with him. But no, in my family, 1 week at the end of our senior year, we got to take the car to school. But that was it. That was only 1 week.
What about you, Ed?
A lot of both. That would be, even Mom rode the bus at Patton's Market to Woodrow with me and my sister. But the last year, my dad bought a Maverick, 1970 Maverick for $19.95, and I picked 6 people up every day. And I could name them, but it's too long. But anyway, I was the driver.
What you got? Both you guys are retired. What's on your bucket list? What do you want to do? I mean, what's something you haven't done?
Man, he's given some great answers tonight. I was hoping. I think, okay, I just started studying Spanish, so that's kind of a bucket list thing that I'm accomplishing now. But I want to go to Central America and South America, where they speak much of it. That's my bucket.
My bucket list includes the Alamo and the Grand Canyon and New England and the Philadelphia area and Mount Rushmore and Nolens. So, now, that's my bucket list. No, not in that order. That's my bucket list, but unfortunately I think I got a big hole in the bucket, so I don't know how much of that I'll get done.
Well, both you guys have been successful. What advice would you give to a graduate, a student that's getting ready to graduate this year? And I ask this for a particular reason. I have a granddaughter that's getting ready to graduate. What kind of advice would you give them?
If they're going to college or any other form of post-secondary education, remember why you're there and call your mom.
Good advice. What about you, Ed?
Well, I'm going to come with something I put on the blog a lot, and it's straight down the middle. It says, life is short, hell is real, and Jesus Christ is coming back. Nobody's argued with me on any of those points yet, nor do I think they will.
I don't think so either. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming and talking to me, and I know you want to get out there with your friends, and till then, God bless you.
Thank you.
Good job, bro.
My next guests are Robert Brock and Bill Kessel, and question, guys, what teacher or teachers at Woodrow Wilson might have influenced you in some way, shape, or form? Bill?
The one that really impressed me and I probably learned the most from was Ralph Goss, taught typing. And his nickname was Ralph Goss, the typing boss. And I've probably learned more, I mean, in terms of being able to apply that the rest of my life. I think I probably learned from his typing class.
What about you, Ron?
Well, there were two. One was Rosie Stover, who was over the Eagle Dispatch, and then the second was Jerry McGraw, who taught history. And they were both very kind to me, and they were helped and were just kind of took me under their wing and kept me out of trouble, or tried to, but they were just, their kindness alone did a lot to get me on the right pathway.
Now, you played football,
I did.
wrestled, track?
I did. I didn't do track.
You didn't do track?
No,
Is your body paying for football and wrestling?
Well, yeah, it's, I blew out a knee in 10th grade, 11th grade, and that is still aggravating me a little bit, but.
Bill, you're a musician, right?
I was in the band.
Did you play any after high school, anything?
I've played around a little bit, groups. In fact, with your wife's dad, we were in a group together.
Oh, yeah, out at the Mining Academy.
Yeah, yeah,
I heard you guys.
Yeah, the Academy Band.
Yeah.
But no, I did that. I played a little baseball. Was on Woodrow's baseball team, but I was never good enough to, I guess, to be out on the field. But
Now, who was coaching then?
Preach Wiseman.
Wiseman was coaching, and you played for Hicks.
I did, yeah. Joel Hicks was.
What was life under Hicks?
Oh, I liked Joel Hicks. He was good to me, and he was, I had played the first year for Coach
Wheeler,
yeah, and that was his last year, our 10th grade year, and his style was a little different than Hicks, but Hicks was a good football coach, and he was very disciplined, and he walked in there and insisted that he turned a ragtag bunch of kids that wanted to play sandlot football into a football team, And
now, Bill, you stayed local. You've lived here, and where you live at, Rob? Where you?
I live between Dallas and Fort Worth, right in the middle.
How'd you end up in Texas?
Well, that's a long story, but I ended up getting a degree in aerospace engineering, and I ended up working for Bell Helicopter for 30 years, and that their main facility is located right there in between Dallas and Fort Worth, and had the opportunity to get involved in the V-22 tilt rotor, and I was there on day one of that program. And they had for an old boy from West Virginia, they give you something that's black and looks like coal, but turns out is an advanced composite material and worth $100 a pound. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, So,
well, the theme in 1971 of your graduation was the long and winding road, Pine Pemberton, and singing a little bit. And what kind of how's your long and winding road been, Bill?
Well, I was telling a couple of people last night, I think it's hard maybe for people that have moved away. It's kind of hard maybe for them to understand why somebody stayed here their whole life. And I told them, I said, well, I was gone for 4 years when I was in Morgantown, going to school. But then I came back here, and honestly, I mean, Beckley's got its problems now, but I wouldn't trade here for anywhere else because of the lifestyle that we have. It's a good life.
What about you, Robert?
Well, I was interested in airplanes and loved airplanes from day one, and of course the space program was, on the TV every time we turned it on, both channels in Beckley at the time, and so we just fell in love when everybody was going to be a astronaut or a engineer, and so I swore I was going to be an engineer, and then I came to the realization that I was probably the dumbest human being that ever occupied the planet, and so my long and winding road included a lot of turnbacks, and I had to learn and catch up and acquire some skills that I had not acquired in the hills. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of aviation, not a lot of aerospace industry in West Virginia, and so I ended up where in the flat places where there were a lot of the facilities like that.
So you guys are, both of you around 68 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What's on your bucket list? I mean, what do you want to do?
Oh,
if you could, what would you like to do or go?
I guess if I had to say anything, I mean, everybody always usually says travel or go somewhere. If I can live a pretty healthy, normal life for another, say, 20 years or so, that's my bucket list, just to make it that long.
What's yours?
Well, part of it goes back to the engineering thing, but once you're an engineer, you're always an engineer, and I was lucky enough to be on some teams, and we came up with about 9 U.S. patents, and unfortunately all of those patents belonged to somebody else, and they paid us well for them and everything, but I came to the realization a long time ago that the real money in inventing things is acquiring intellectual property and keeping it to yourself, and so I guess my bucket list would have at least one invention that belongs just to me.
If you were going to give advice to someone getting ready to graduate, what would it be, Rob?
Well, I mean, I foolishness. Bill will tell you. Bill and I went to grade school together, and a lot of foolishness, a lot of wasted time, a lot of not listening to good people that I should have listened to when I had my mouth open and I should have had my mouth shut. And unfortunately, in life, and as you go down that long and winding road, you get to learn all those things that you should have learned in 3rd grade, and you get to learn those sometimes to your embarrassment in the 2nd year physics class. And so I would advise young people here that they can be anything that they want to be, but they just got to get busy and get disciplined and listen and learn, and it's a magnificent age we live in where it used to be when we wanted to get a book in Beckley, we had to walk for 5 miles up to the Beckley Library and check it out and then carry it back in the snow and take our jacket off and wrap it up so that the book didn't get wet. It didn't matter if we did, but sure didn't want that book to get wet. And now the kid can sit in his study at home and hit 10 buttons and acquire all the books we ever checked out of the library in one afternoon. So tremendous time to be alive.
What kind of advice would you give, Bill?
I think if I would say to them to listen to advice, but be diligent in knowing that the advice that you're getting is good advice. Because people are going to tell you all your life what to do. It's the advice that you take that makes a positive impact on you. That's the advice you need to really pay attention to and listen to. And I mean, we're all guilty of not doing that in our life, but these kids now have, I've got a niece that's going to graduate from Woodrow this year, and I never thought I would say this. I really questioned whether or not right now she should go on to college immediately because of just the way the indoctrination and all that that's going on. Maybe wait a year, get your feet on the ground to where you have a more open mind, and then go for it and look at it from a whole different perspective.
Yeah, you take today's seniors in Beckley in West Virginia, they've gone through a couple teacher strikes, they've gone through pandemic, they're facing whatever we're going to face this year, and so it's tough. I wouldn't want to be going to school now. I wouldn't want to be, I tell you. But
they haven't had a full school year.
No.
Since they were in middle school.
Yep. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming and talking to me, and I know you want to get back and talk to your friends, and until the next time we see you, God bless you. Our next guest is Mark Line, graduated in 1971, Woodrow Wilson High School, and glad to have you here, Mark.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And when you was in high school, you played a little music, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in the band.
You played trumpet?
Yeah, played the trumpet.
You still play anything?
No, just my mouth right now.
Was there any teacher in high school that was you had an influence on you on any decisions you made, or anybody you just liked better than the others?
Well, there's quite a few that helped me through. But I remember Miss Reed. She was a really down-to-earth teacher, and she meant a lot to me. She would keep us in control, pretty much. She had one of those disabilities where she could see different places really easy. So
she was down in D-Wing.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, I remember Miss Reed.
She got me on the right path there for a while, so I appreciated her really well.
What'd you do after you graduated? Right after graduation.
Well, I ended up working for a municipality in Jacksonville, Florida, and then did some. I worked for an engineering company for 3-4 years, and then I went to work for the city of Atlantic Beach as their CEI, construction engineering inspector. So it's a pretty good job.
Are you retired now?
Oh yeah, couldn't take the politics.
Well, somebody told me you were sailing a lot.
Oh yeah, we sailed for about 6 years. Went different places. My wife was still working, so we had to kind of, time stuff between trying to get internet service and that kind of thing because she'd work from the boat. So I made friends with a lot of guys, and I ended up crewing for them. So I went around the Caribbean quite a bit, and Bahamas, Panama, and.
Is it just you and your wife, or?
Well, when I was crewing, it was on another boat. But
yeah.
Me and her, we had down in Marathon. We lived down there probably 5 months, and on a mooring ball. So that was really unique. That was a great community. Sailing community is great.
The theme of the class of 1971 was Long and Winding Road. Has it been a long and winding road for you, 50 years?
Yeah, I'd say it has. I've had a lot of ups and downs and, different stuff. But, yeah, it's been quite a journey.
What kind of advice would you give to a student getting ready to graduate this year? Any advice?
I would say go with your passion, whatever it is. To whatever you're good at, kind of sit down and research your own self and see what you're really good at, and then kind of direct your studies towards that.
Since you spend a lot of time on the seawater and the salt water, have you ever been in a huge storm and something to scare you to death?
We watch the weather a lot when you're sailing, and you try to avoid that. But I was tied up in the mangroves, but we had some pretty good weather coming through South Florida a few times. But No, I haven't really been in a big storm. I've been in some 14-foot waves and stuff, crossing over the Bahamas. But nothing that really scared me too much, because we take a lot of precautions. You always have backups to the backups and that kind of thing. So.
We seem to be living a good life, but what's on your bucket list? What's?
Well, right now we're RVing full time, and we've been up to Vermont. We're on our way back to Florida for the winter, and then we're going to head out west. We're going to probably go to Wyoming in July and Yellowstone and that kind of thing, and then keep the RV out there probably somewhere like Texas or Arizona, and then fly back to Jacksonville for the winter, and then go back RVing again. Probably stay out there 2 or 3 years, probably go to Alaska or something like that. Travel around the United States, see what's here. So much to see.
You're kind of living the dream.
Well, trying to, but it's just like living anywhere else. I mean, you live at your house, you still have the life still goes on. So it's not all roses all the time, but it's just change, and keep going, and you'll make it.
Is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to since we're on the air? Any friends, family? Better give one to your wife, man.
Well, yeah, my wife. I better do that.
What's her name?
Her name's Mary, and she's the reason I'm still alive. If you knew me in high school, you'd understand that, of course. So, yeah, she saved my life. So, I was kind of wild there for a while.
Well, we've had a good time last night, and have a great time tonight, and get to see a lot of people, and hopefully we'll get back together in 3 years, like they say. And
that'd be great.
Appreciate you coming by, and
all right,
until
Wayne.
then, God bless you, buddy.
Well,
okay, that concludes our podcast, and what a great weekend we had. I'm kind of sorry we didn't get to talk to everyone, but the ones that we did miss, we'll try to get. They say we're going to have one in 3 years, so we'll try to get a few more interviews there. To the ones who we got to speak with, appreciate your thoughtfulness and your prophetic wisdom, and really enjoyed it. And I don't know, Diane, it's something about your reunion. It just, everybody seemed to get along, and I enjoy it as much as I do anything. What do you think the answer is?
Well, when I was in junior high, all the kids came to junior high from the schools that didn't have 1 through 8. So there were a large group of us that went from 7th together, 8th together. And the year that we got into the 9th grade was the year that they split us up. So some of us went to Park, some of us went to Beckley Junior High, and some went to Stratton Junior High. Well, I went to Stratton, and a lot of my friends went to the other 2 places, other junior highs. When we finally got out of junior high and started over at Woodrow, it was just like a big reunion anyway, because here we had all come back together after being separated for a year, and it was just like, man, I've missed you. So when we get together for these reunions, it's just like that all over again, and I think that's why our reunions are so much fun, is we genuinely like each other.
Well, that's pretty obvious, I think, and like I said, everybody always had a good time, and loved every minute of it. I do want to make one correction. This was our 29th episode of podcast instead of the 28th that I said at the beginning, and so we're looking for the next reunion where everybody will be should be around 71 years old, and of course class of 1971, and that's 3 years away, so looking forward. And you can check us out and like us on Facebook, Spotify, Google, Podomatic. We sure would appreciate it, and hope you've enjoyed it. And remember, if you ain't dead yet, you ain't done yet. And this is Wayne Bennett. God bless you.